One of the biggest struggles for a craftsman trying to run a business is pricing. And I think there's a few reasons behind that that are pretty common throughout. But number one, I think, is if we know how to build something, we know how to make something and do it with our hands, then we don't value it as much, right? Just about every craftsman I know, they say, well, gosh, I wouldn't pay that much for it, you know, talking about the things that they are building. And they wouldn't. That's a lot of times that's why people wind up starting to make something, because they didn't want to pay the prices that it costs to have something made. So they learned how to make it themselves. And in turn, they actually have paid for it. They just paid for it in their time. They spent the time learning and developing the skill to be able to create the item. And once they've invested the time, then they don't value that time as much. Once it's already invested, they only see the time that it takes to physically make this product, not the time that it took to learn to make that product. And they want to charge just for the time that they are making the product, and pretty minimal for that time at best, and then their materials, and that's it. So in turn, somebody gets a smoking deal anyways, because they don't have to pay those large investments into that. But what happens to the crafter is they now have just priced themselves to where they are barely having a job. They just priced a job, and not truly running a business out of it. A business is going to have margins built in there, and that's been one of the struggles I've learned and been trying to overcome, is calculating those margins and figuring out, making sure there's enough room fit into your prices to not only pay for the materials that it costs to make it, and then pay for the labor, whether that's me making that or somebody else that I have in the shop, right? I have to pay the labor on that regardless of who it is doing that. But it's probably easier to see when we look at the idea of paying somebody else to do it, right? So if I have a product that I have to buy the materials for one, so we need to have the money in there to cover the materials, and then I have somebody else in here do the build on that. Well, I have to pay their wage for the time it takes to build that, and then above that, so that takes care of the first two things that most people consider, time and materials, right? But now we also have the workspace, right? It costs money to be in a workspace, whether that's in here or whether that's the back room of a house, anything. Now some spaces are going to cost more than others, but there is overhead fixed that you have to figure into there, because you have to work somewhere. Then there's, is this a product that's going to get shipped out? Is there shipping involved? Are you setting up a booth somewhere, or in a storefront, and having to take time to merchandise that stuff, meaning take time to set it up, prop it up, figure out displays, things like that. So there's time involved there. Is it a custom order? Well, are you considering your time spent talking to the customer, figuring out what they want, taking the order, going over any details? So that time needs to be figured in there. And then if it is a shipping thing, well, do you have the luxury of having something picked up from the post office, or do you have to physically make those runs? So there's time in that. There's packaging materials, boxes, paper, tape, any of that stuff. So there's a lot of costs that I think people easily overlook and think, well, that just is part of it. Well, it is part of it, but you have to price it as it's part of it. And if I do just those things, think about this as a business owner, and we're taking the scenario where I'm hiring somebody else in on the labor portion. If I price just those things and don't add any margin, then all I've done is pay for the item and pay for the labor and simply done the business just to say I was in business. If we figure in the margin, now you have room either to invest back in the company and grow that business, or that margin is profit, and that's the money we make on the business. And the whole idea of being in business is that you serve people, deliver value, and then make money, right? It's an exchange of value. I give a service or a product in exchange for money. That's the core behind business. So the problem is, as makers, so often I know I started as just individual one-person maker. We don't look at the full idea of the business, and that's something I've been learning a lot over the years. Some lessons harder than others. The one thing with on-the-job lessons in business is it's not missing points on a test score like in a business class. It's those test points are dollars. So a lot of those lessons we learn have a little bit more impact. But I think just considering that all the different factors in pricing can help a crafter start to put that value on what they're doing. And then once you see the value in what you're doing, it's easier to portray that value to your customer, and that's what we're advertising, right? And they're going to think something is too expensive if, one, it's out of their budget, which that's completely fine. There's things out of everybody's budget. But the other thing is why they think it's too expensive is they don't see the value in it the way you do, right? They don't think the value in the product or service is equal to the dollar value placed on that. So that's where it turns into customer education, which is also our responsibility as the business owner to talk about that and educate our customer on why does this product cost this amount? What are the values in that product? What is this product going to do for them? Some people are going to put value in different aspects of that product. Some people are going to really like the quality ingredients that's made out of, they like the materials, the leather, in the case of what we're doing right here, they want to know this is a Herman Oak belt blank, the best belt blank we can offer. Other people are going to put value in the fact that it is one of a kind. This particular custom belt is for a one-off custom order. They wanted something very particular. We drew a pattern just for this belt, drew it right on the belt. So there's never going to be another belt like this one out there. And they want that individuality in that, that identity they get from knowing that they have this one-of-a-kind art piece that they get to wear around. They get that identity every time they put that belt on. Other people in the industry can see and know that they have a custom belt. Some people are going to put the value in a product simply because of the maker, because they've built a relationship with that maker. They trust that maker, admire their work in general, and just want a piece of their work regardless of what it is. So there's all sorts of ways that people are going to find value in what it is you're doing, but there's more to it than just the product itself. When we look at a product like this, a belt, for example, what is that? You know, is that just something to hold your pants up? I mean, if you were just selling something to hold your pants up, you could sell a piece of string, do the same job. But people don't want a piece of string. They want to have the identity, the status, that heirloom piece. You know, look at a belt like this. This is a little baby's belt here, baby's first belt. And you're selling memories. You're selling all sorts of things with that. You're selling the heritage, that Western heritage that grandma or grandpa's passing down to their grandkid when they get them that belt. And then when this little belt turns into a purse strap later on, the memories that come with that. So there's a lot more to it than just the product that you're selling. But as crafters, we have to first put that value in our heads on it before we can even begin to portray that value to our clients.